There's a moment, quiet and terrifying, when a Scorpio soul realizes they were never the one chasing love, they were the one awakening it. And sometimes, just sometimes, that love dares to return, but not as it once was, not begging. Not beautiful, but haunted. Because when you love a Scorpio, you don't just walk away from a person. You walk away from a sacred gate. You walk away from a soul that stared into your darkness and didn't flinch. You walk away from the only mirror brave enough to reflect who you truly are. And that mirror, it doesn't shatter, it sharpens. My name is Dr. Azra Thorne, a longtime Scorpio researcher based in the Shadowlands of Sedona, Arizona, where the veil between timelines is thin and transformation is a way of life. I've studied the Scorpio archetype not just through books, but through lifetimes, through stories whispered under eclipses and pain etched into the hearts of those who carry the mark of the phoenix. And today, I need you to listen. Because a return is approaching, but not just any return. This is the return of a soul you thought was gone, a presence tied to your destiny not by love alone, but by a contract written before you were born. You may already feel it. The flicker in your chest when their name passes through a dream. The sudden stillness when a familiar scent brushes your skin. The weightless ache of memories that refuse to die. But let me be clear, this is not about getting them back. This is about getting you back, the you that was buried under betrayal, the you that turned poison into power, the you that never truly disappeared, only waited in silence for your return. So if your soul is trembling right now, if something ancient is rising in you, if the fire you thought was extinguished begins to burn again, stay with me, because what's coming is not a love story, it's a soul reckoning. And you, Scorpio, you are ready. Part 1, the resurrection of a soul contract. Scorpio, you felt it, haven't you? That sudden stillness in the middle of an ordinary day, that whisper of a name you hadn't spoken in years. The chill down your spine that came not from fear but recognition. Someone is returning, but it's not just about a person, it's about a promise, not the kind made with words, but the kind carved into soul bone before you even took your first breath. There is a contract written into your Scorpio essence, one that doesn't live in logic. It lives in the deep, in the places where time folds and energy loops, in the echoes of a touch that still lingers on your skin, even if the body is gone. This is the kind of bond most people would run from, but not you, because you were never built for surface love. You came into this world carrying the weight of ancient vows, of sacred agreements forged in staff and sealed in silence. And when someone touches you at that level, truly touches your soul, the tie doesn't sever. It hibernates until now, because something has awakened it, and that something is you. Yes, you awakened it. Not because you went searching for them, but because you stopped searching for anything outside of yourself. Your healing summoned them. Your transformation rattled the gates of karma. Your decision to rise, to reclaim every fractured part of your power, has triggered the resurrection of a forgotten soul contract. They may feel it as confusion, restlessness, a sudden desire to reach out without knowing why, but you feel it in the marrow of your being, because it's not about the person, it's about the lesson they carry. And Scorpio, you're finally ready to receive it without flinching. But make no mistake, this return is not gentle, it is a mirror. A mirror to who you were when you loved them. A mirror to the version of you who gave and bled and waited. A mirror that will show you crystal clear just how far you've come and what parts of your soul are still waiting to come home. You're not meeting them again to rekindle romance. You're meeting them again to retrieve your power. And that power, Scorpio, is sacred. Do you remember who you were back then, before the betrayal, before the silence? Before you learned that some soul ties aren't meant to last forever, but to awaken something immortal inside you. You weren't naive, you were brave enough to love with your entire being, and brave enough eventually to let go. But now the universe is asking you to face it one final time. Not for closure, for completion. There is a loop closing, a karmic door creaking open, not to invite them in, but to let you out of the past, out of the pattern, out of the illusion that you were ever anything less than divine. Scorpio, this is your moment. And the contract, it's not binding anymore, it's burning. And from its ashes, something new, something sovereign will rise. Part 2, the sacred death of illusion. Scorpio, before a soul can be reborn, it must first bury the lie it was forced to live. And you've worn a mask for far too long. Not because you were dishonest, but because the world was never ready for your truth. You became what others could handle, not what your soul truly was. You shrank your power to comfort their fear. You softened your fire so it wouldn't burn those who never learned to carry their own light. You played along, the strong one, the silent one, the survivor. Because somewhere deep down, you believed your full truth might be too much. But Scorpio, that belief, that was the illusion. And now it is dying, not with a scream, but with a sacred silence. A silence so pure it hums. It hums with the sound of your soul waking up. It hums with the frequency of every version of you who ever had to dim their flame just to belong. This is not a death to fear. This is the death of the disguise, the false self, the people-pleasing self, the cautious, careful, calculated self. Gone. You are standing at the edge of a threshold now, not just to your past, but to your real identity, the one that existed before they taught you to doubt your depth. And let me tell you a secret. Most people will mourn this death before they understand it. They'll think you're changing, that you're different, that you're colder now, more distant, harder to reach. But Scorpio, you're not cold, you're clear, you're not distant, you're sacred. You're not harder to reach. You've simply stopped translating your soul into a language that was never meant to be spoken by the uninitiated. The sacred death that is approaching is not the death of your love, it's the death of your silence. The end of your need to prove your worth, the collapse of the mask you built to survive. And with that collapse, the real you steps forward not as a whisper, but as a presence, a force, a storm wrapped in stillness. A being who no longer waits for permission to be whole. You might feel grief during this transition. Let it come. You're not grieving the person, you're grieving the version of yourself that tolerated less, the one who accepted crumbs, the one who mistook survival for power, the one who kept showing up with a full heart for people who only had hands built to take. Let them go, let the mask fall. Because what remains, what rises from that sacred death, is the version of you that never needed to be rescued, only remembered. Life lesson from part 2. Before transformation comes the funeral of who you were taught to be. Scorpio's greatest power is not in revenge or survival. It's in the holy act of burning down every lie they believed about themselves and walking out of the fire whole. Part 3, the return, isn't about them. Scorpio, you might think this is about them, the one who left, the one who shattered you, the one whose name still lingers like smoke in your lungs. But listen closely, because this is the turning point. Their return is not about reconciliation. It is about revelation. They're not coming back so you can fix what was broken. They're coming back because you already did. You see, when a Scorpio begins to heal, the energy around them shifts. And when a Scorpio finally chooses themselves, not out of spite, but out of divine recognition, the karmic wheel starts to move. It's not magic, it's law. Spiritual law, soul law. The moment you reclaimed the part of yourself you left in their hands. The moment you stopped checking your worth in their mirror. The universe took notice, and so did they. Maybe they don't know why they suddenly feel your energy again. Maybe they don't understand why your name drips into their thoughts like a forgotten melody returning in the rain. But you do, because you didn't heal to prove anything. You healed to remember who you are, and that remembrance, that internal thunder, sent a shockwave through the invisible web that still connects you. But make no mistake, Scorpio. This is not about going back, this is about going inward. To the deepest chamber of your being, the place where you left yourself behind while waiting for them to choose you. And now you are the one who chooses. Not them, not the past, not the apology that never came. You choose truth. And in doing so, you render their return unnecessary. I know that sounds harsh, but the truth always is when it sets us free. Their return may come in many forms: a text message that freezes your breath, a dream that leaves you weeping in the dark, a song that shows up at just the wrong moment, or maybe the exact right one. But those aren't signs from the universe to try again. They're reflections. Reflections of the soul lesson you have already passed. Because Scorpio, this meeting, if it happens, isn't for romance. It's for retrieval. You're retrieving the last part of your power that stayed buried under the rubble of that old connection. Not because you were weak, but because you were loyal. And loyalty, when offered to the wrong altar, becomes grief, but not anymore. Now you offer that loyalty inward to yourself, to your healing, to the temple of your own wholeness. And you don't need their permission to close the chapter. You are the one who wrote it. Life lesson from part 3. The soul that returns isn't always meant to stay. Sometimes it comes back only so you can see it clearly one final time and choose yourself over the memory. Part 4. The power shift. Scorpio, for a long time, you gave your power away not because you were blind, but because you were devoted. And that devotion, it wasn't weakness, it was sacred. But sacred things in unworthy hands become weapons. And you've been on the receiving end of that blade far too many times. Now the blade has changed hands, but not for revenge, for clarity. This is the moment where the scales begin to balance. Not because karma is punishing them, but because you stopped punishing yourself. They may return thinking you are still the same, still waiting, still soft where they left bruises, still wide open in the places they once couldn't hold. But what they'll find instead is silence, stillness, power wrapped in peace. Because here's the truth: when you stop needing their apology, you stop giving them access to your soul. You no longer explain your absence. You no longer soften your voice. You no longer shrink your light so they can feel tall. You don't rise with fire. You rise with sovereignty. It's the version of you they once knew, the one who bled in the dark for their comfort. That version has been buried in sacred ground, mourned, honored, released, and the one who stands in her place now. That's the Scorpio who has walked through the fire and come out gold. Let me tell you something very few will understand. When a Scorpio takes back their energy, the shift is cosmic, galactic, eternal. Because your energy, Scorpio, is a lifeline for others. Your presence alters timelines. Your love transforms entire realities. And now that you've stopped pouring it into people who weren't ready, it's pouring back into you. That's what this moment is, that feeling of fullness. The sudden laughter out of nowhere, the tears that come not from sadness but release. That's not coincidence, that's restoration. You are being restored to your rightful throne. And the ones who once held fragments of your soul in their careless palms, they feel it, even if they don't understand it. They feel the shift, the power realigning, not to hurt them, but to heal you. Life lesson from part 4. The moment you stop seeking justice from others, the universe begins delivering it through you. Scorpio doesn't chase closure, they become it. Part 5. Lessons of Power, Life Wisdom. Scorpio, now that the dust has settled, and the illusions have died their slow, silent death. What remains? You do, but not the version of you that once begged the universe to bring someone back. Not the version that tried to decode every message, every silence, every shift in tone. Not the one who thought love meant sacrifice, even when the altar was your own spirit. No, the version standing here now is different. This is the version forged in grief and risen in grace. The Scorpio who has passed the test not by holding on, but by letting go, because the real power, the kind that shakes timelines and silences ghosts, doesn't come from revenge, it comes from release. You've stopped praying for them to come back. Now you pray for the wisdom to never betray yourself again. And that, my beautiful Scorpio, is your lesson of power. That love without self-honor is not love at all, it's a slow erasure. That silence isn't weakness when it comes from sovereignty. That forgiveness doesn't mean reopening the door, it means locking it with peace. Power is not in being chosen. It's in choosing yourself so completely that no rejection can shake you. Power is not in knowing whether they'll return. It's in knowing that you don't need them to. You once believed they were your mirror, but now you realize they were only your trigger. The true mirror was the pain. It showed you every part of yourself still waiting to be reclaimed. And now you've done it. You've picked up the pieces, not to rebuild what was, but to reshape what will never be broken again. You don't need closure from the person, because you became the gatekeeper of your own endings. You don't need a confession to validate your pain, because your soul already testified to its truth. And you don't need anyone to tell you how far you've come, because you carry the evidence in your silence, in your boundaries, in your rebirth. This is not just healing, Scorpio, this is mastery. Life lesson from part 5. True power is silent, it doesn't beg, it doesn't prove, it doesn't chase, it knows. And when Scorpio knows who they are, there is no force in this world or beyond that can unseat them from their throne. Part 6, the awakening of the one who left. Somewhere in a quiet room under a familiar sky, or buried inside a restless dream, someone is beginning to feel it, the tremor, the haunting, the echo. Scorpio, they may not know it yet, but a part of them is waking up. And it's not because they suddenly remembered your name, it's because your energy has changed. You are no longer reaching for them, you are rising without them. And that is exactly what's pulling them back. You see, people often say they miss you, but what they really miss is who they were when they stood in your light. Because your love, your Scorpio love, is not ordinary, it doesn't flatter. It doesn't perform, it awakens. It digs under the skin, down to the soul, and holds up a mirror to the parts of them they never wanted to see. And now, as you reclaim your power, that mirror has reappeared. Not in your words, but in your silence. Scorpio, you've become the reckoning. They scroll through their phone and feel a pang they can't name. They pass by someone wearing your scent and their stomach turns. They hear a song and time folds. Not because the universe is punishing them, but because their soul knows something sacred has shifted. Your healing sent out a frequency, and that frequency has disturbed the timeline. It has awakened a dormant seed, a spiritual alarm clock planted at the moment your souls first collided. It's ringing now, loud, persistent, inevitable. But understand this, their awakening does not obligate you to open the door. Just because they now feel what you once felt, just because they now realize what they couldn't carry, doesn't mean they are ready. What's happening within them is not about romance, it's about reckoning. The reckoning of every choice they made while you offered them depth. The reckoning of every lie they told themselves to justify leaving. The reckoning of what they lost, not in losing you, but in losing access to who they were becoming in your presence. They may come back seeking comfort, but they won't find the old version of you. They may seek understanding, but they will meet stillness. And that stillness, it will shake them more than your rage ever did. Life lesson from part 6. When a Scorpio heals, their silence becomes the loudest truth in someone else's life. You don't need to teach them a lesson. Your evolution is the lesson, and they will either rise to meet your new frequency or get lost in the echo of who you used to be. Part 7, meeting the ghost one last time. And then it happens, not in a grand explosion, not in some cinematic reunion under a stormy sky, but in a whisper, a flicker, a message, a dream. Scorpio, you meet the ghost one last time. It may be in the waking world. A name that pops up on your phone out of nowhere. A message that simply says, "Hey, been thinking about you." Or it may be in the realms beyond. A dream so vivid it leaves you breathless. A presence in the room that you cannot see but undeniably feel. A sensation that they are there not to stay but to be witnessed. This is the soul contract's final invocation, not to reignite love, but to retrieve the fragments of your spirit that were left behind, the pieces you gave when you were still learning what boundaries meant, the emotions you poured out when you thought being vulnerable meant being chosen, the truth you whispered when no one was listening. And now, Scorpio, you're listening to yourself. This meeting, however it arrives, is not about closure from them. It is about completion within you. You may feel the old ache rise for a moment. Your chest may tighten. Your body may remember the way you used to respond. It's the part of you that once would have opened the door wide and said, "Come home." But something is different now. You don't need them to say, "I'm sorry," for you to know you were never to blame. You don't need to ask why. Because you already live in the answer. You don't need to revisit the pain. You've already rebuilt your house with its ashes. You look at them, or the echo of them, and instead of trembling, you simply breathe. And in that breath, you reclaim your sovereignty. There's no drama, no final speech, no tears, just a soft, unshakable knowing. I survived, I healed, I became. And if this return happens only in the dream world, that's enough. Because energy never lies, the contract has been honored, the mirror has been cleaned, and the ghost, it no longer holds the keys to your kingdom, you do. Life lesson from part 7, some ghosts don't return for reconciliation. They return for recognition. Scorpio doesn't meet the past to relive it, they meet it to reclaim what was left behind. You don't owe your former self a reunion, you owe them a resurrection. Part 8, the soul contract dissolves. Scorpio soul contracts are not forever, they are sacred agreements, not life sentences. And now yours is dissolving, not in bitterness, not in blame, but in light. There is a moment in every Scorpio's evolution when they realize they no longer need to carry the story. They no longer need to revisit the pages where their love was mishandled, or highlight the chapters where their silence was misunderstood. Because the contract has been fulfilled, and you, Scorpio, have kept your end of the vow. Even when the other didn't, you stayed when it hurt, you listened when they shut down, you gave when you were empty, you transformed when they ran. But here's the truth, their exit was never your abandonment. It was your activation. It forced you to remember who you are without them. It pulled you back into your soul's deeper curriculum. The one written not in promises made to others, but in promises made to yourself. Now with every breath you feel it, the energetic cords fray, the loops uncoil, the psychic tethers loosen, and it doesn't hurt, it hums, like a frequency you couldn't access until you no longer needed their apology. Like a door you didn't even realize you were guarding, now quietly closing itself, with grace, with finality. This is the sacred dissolution. You may not even need to say goodbye, because spiritually you already have. Not with your voice, but with your vibration. And as that contract fades, something extraordinary begins. You get your full power back, not piece by piece, all at once. All the energy you invested, all the intuition you offered, all the healing you tried to do for both of you. Comes home, you'll feel it in the way your body breathes deeper, in how your heart no longer flinches at their memory, in how you no longer feel compelled to check, to wonder, to wait. You no longer miss them because what you truly missed was yourself. And now you're here fully, finally, powerfully. Life lesson from part 8: when the contract ends, so does the illusion. Scorpio's love was never meant to be wasted, it was meant to awaken. And now that the lesson is complete, the soul is free. Part 9: the new love that awaits Scorpio. Scorpio, now that the past has released its grip, now that the contract has dissolved in sacred silence, what remains? Love, but not the kind you once chased, not the kind that made you question your worth, not the kind that came dressed in lessons and left dressed in wounds. This love is different because it begins within you. It's the most radiant, nourishing, untouchable love you will ever know. Is the one you now offer yourself. You've walked through the underworld, you've sat in the ruins, you've held your own heartbreak like a sacred offering. And now, you rise not to find someone new, but to become someone new, the new love that awaits you. Is peace, peace in your body, peace in your boundaries, peace in knowing you never needed to be softer, they simply weren't strong enough to hold your truth. This love doesn't come with confusion, it comes with clarity. It doesn't demand you to shrink, it demands you to expand. And maybe, just maybe, in the alignment of your highest self, in the electric field of your new frequency, someone will come, but this time, not to complete you, not to rescue you, not to fix what another broke. They will arrive as a mirror, not of your wounds, but of your wholeness, because you've become a sanctuary, a temple no longer open to chaos, a flame that doesn't flicker for passing shadows, a soul so full that it no longer seeks permission to shine. This is the love you were always meant for, Scorpio, not the one that asks, "Am I enough?" but the one that proclaims, "I am everything." The old love was a lesson. The new love is a reflection of your worth, of your wisdom, of your rebirth. And whether that love comes from another soul or whether it blooms solely within your own, you will know this truth. You were never waiting for someone else to return. You were waiting for you. Life lesson from part 9. Scorpio's true love story isn't with someone who returns. It's with the version of themselves that rose in their absence. When you become the love you once begged for, you stop settling for anything that makes you beg again. Part 10. The throne was always yours. Scorpio, there is something sacred about finally returning to yourself, not as a reaction, not as revenge, but as a revelation, because the truth is the throne you thought you lost was never taken. You only stepped away from it, you left it for love, you abandoned it for connection, you dimmed your crown for companionship, and now you remember it was always yours. They didn't steal your power, you offered it in the name of hope, in the name of maybe this time, in the name of a love that never deserved your sacrifice. But Scorpio, sacrifice is only holy when it honors both souls, and you were carrying more than your half. You carried the weight of emotional labor. You carried the burden of silence. You carried the mirror and the mask. For someone who wasn't ready to see either, but that chapter is closed, not with fire, with sovereignty. You sit on your throne differently now. You don't need to raise your voice. Your presence speaks for itself. You don't need to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. You walk into rooms no longer asking who will stay. You walk in knowing that whoever can't match your frequency will simply fall away. And this isn't cold, this isn't bitter, it's sacred discernment. You've become the sovereign of your own energy. And that is the ultimate Scorpio power. Not seduction, not mystery, not even revenge, but the quiet, unwavering knowing of your worth. Now your love is no longer currency, it's ceremony. You don't offer it to those who haven't done their soul work. You don't water gardens that only bloom when it's convenient. You wait for no one, because the one you were waiting for, the one with fire in their lungs and stars in their eyes, was always you. You are not rising from the ashes anymore. You are building with them. Your pain was not a punishment, it was an initiation. And now you are the phoenix and the flame, the queen and the kingdom, the secret and the key. Life lesson from part 10. You didn't reclaim your power, you remembered it. The throne was never moved, it was simply waiting for you to stop shrinking to fit inside stories that couldn't hold your soul. Part 11. The ghosts can no longer haunt you. Scorpio. There was a time when their name made your breath catch, when a memory could ambush you in the middle of your healing. When the ghost of what was, or what could have been, still held a room inside your heart, but not anymore, because something profound has happened. Not overnight, not loudly, but deeply. The ghosts can no longer haunt you. They may still knock, they may still hover in dreams, they may still echo in songs, in scents, in the shadowed corners of your awareness. But they no longer hold power, because you are no longer afraid of what they reflect. Once upon a time, those ghosts represented pain, abandonment, unanswered questions, unspoken apologies. Now they are reminders of how far you've come, of how much you've healed, of how deeply you are no longer available for anything less than sacred love. You've outgrown the haunting, because haunting only happens when we leave the past unresolved. But Scorpio, you've resolved it, not through revenge, not through reattachment, but through understanding. You no longer ask, why did they leave? You now ask, why did I stay so long with what couldn't meet me? You no longer romanticize their return. You recognize it for what it is, a ripple in the timeline, not a summons. You have become immune to nostalgia, not because you're hard, but because you're whole. Let them remember you. Let them feel you when the lights are off and their soul is quiet. Let them reach for a version of you that no longer exists, because now your energy moves in sacred silence. Not to be seen, but to be sovereign. You don't haunt them. You mirror them, and what they see now is what they lost, not because you vanished, but because you evolved. Life lesson from part 11. Healing isn't about forgetting the ghost. It's about no longer fearing its return. When Scorpio finally seals the past with wisdom, the only thing left behind is truth. And truth, unlike ghosts, doesn't chase, it liberates. Part 12. You are now the sanctuary. Scorpio. There was a time when you searched. You searched for the one who could see you, the one who could hold you in your depth without flinching. It's the one who wouldn't run when the waters got dark, but would dive with you. You searched temples, you searched bodies, you searched past lives and sleepless nights. You searched silence and music and memory. But what you didn't know was that you were never searching for a person. You were searching for a place that could hold all of you, the shadow and the light, the venom and the medicine, the wound and the wisdom. And Scorpio, you became that place. You are now the sanctuary, not because someone anointed you, not because someone returned to crown you worthy, but because you rebuilt your heart from ashes and made it a temple no one can enter without permission. This is your final transformation. Not just survival, not just healing, but sovereignty. You no longer fear abandonment because you no longer abandon yourself. You no longer crave validation because your own reflection is enough. You no longer beg for peace because you are peace. You are the sacred space, the rare silence in a loud world, the still flame that doesn't flicker when others come and go. People will feel it when they stand near you now. They'll feel the steadiness, the protection, the depth. They'll either rise to mate it or quietly disappear. And you won't chase either outcome because you've realized your energy is not for convincing. It's for connecting, and connection only happens when both souls stand naked in truth. No masks, no games, no shadows pretending to be light. So now you wait for no one. You hold space for nothing unworthy. You sit in your stillness, not alone, but surrounded by everything you reclaimed. And when love does come, if it comes, it won't arrive to save you. It will arrive because you no longer need saving. It will find you in your temple, not knocking to be let in, but bowing, asking if it's worthy to stay. Final life lesson from part 12. Scorpio's journey doesn't end with someone returning. It ends when Scorpio returns to themselves and finds at the center of all that grief the most unshakable truth. You are never the seeker. You are always the sacred place being sought. You are not the lover waiting for validation. You are the sanctuary that love must rise to meet. Conclusion, you are what comes next. Scorpio, if you've made it this far, know this: you are no longer the wound. You are the healing. You are no longer the story they left behind. You are the entire book they were never ready to read. The love you thought you lost, it was never lost. It was being transformed into wisdom, into strength, into a deeper version of you. You are not what was broken. You are what was built after. Every ghost that haunted you was only ever a reminder of the power you'd buried. And now that power walks beside you, not to protect you from the past, but to guide you into the future only you could create. Because what comes next is not them. It's you, your clarity, your boundaries, your light, your voice, your quiet, sacred refusal to ever again become small in someone else's story. You don't need their permission. You don't need their explanation. You don't even need their return, because you have returned to your body, to your voice, to your throne. You are no longer waiting at the door. You are the door, and only truth walks through. I want to hear from you. What part of this message struck something in your soul? Was it the moment you realized they never truly saw you? Or the moment you knew you had finally seen yourself? Drop it in the comments below. Let's build a space where Scorpio voices are heard, felt, and revered. Let someone else scrolling find your story and feel less alone. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to The Path to Buddhist Wisdom. This journey isn't over. There is more soul work to uncover, more karmic truths to unveil, and more sacred power within you waiting to awaken. We walk together from this point forward, not as seekers, but as keepers of the fire. Until next time, Scorpio. Remember, you are not who they left. You are who rose after they left, and that is unstoppable.